In the aftermath of the Bondi Beach tragedy, two completely different stories emerged. One was about terror, and the other was about an unlikely hero. So we're going to break down the evidence, see where those two narratives collide, and what that collision really tells us about the geopolitical fallout. We have to start with the human cost. This quote from the mother of 10-year-old Matilda, it's not just a data point. It's the heart of our investigation. It's a gut-wrenching reminder of what was truly lost that day. All right, our investigation is going to unfold like a strategic case file, broken down into 5 key sections. We'll kick things off with the attack itself, then analyze the heroic intervention that really complicated the initial story. From there, we'll dig into the government's response, the wider geopolitical pressures at play, and finally, we'll pick apart the questions that still hang over the official timeline.
Okay, let's first establish the baseline facts. The incident as it was reported by authorities. This is the official sequence of events that shaped how the entire world immediately understood the attack.
The final toll was just horrific. The attack ended up causing 15 deaths and injuring over 40 people. That makes it Australia's deadliest mass shooting since the Port Arthur Massacre back in 1996. The tactical planning here is chillingly precise. Looking at the area map, the perpetrators didn't just pick a crowded event. They specifically chose this elevated footbridge. This spot gave them a commanding line of sight, which maximized casualties and made it incredibly difficult for people below to escape. But right as those initial reports of an ISIS-inspired attack were flooding the media, a very different and much more complex story started to bubble up from the ground. A story that just didn't fit that simple, horrifying narrative. And this is where our 3D tactical map becomes absolutely crucial. While the attackers were positioned up here on the bridge, video evidence shows Ahmed al-Ahmed charging from the crowd. He follows what we're calling a hero's path. He runs directly at one of the gunmen, tackles him, and wrestles the weapon away before getting shot in the shoulder. It's just an extraordinary act of bravery. And here it is. This is the critical pivot point. This one act of courage completely shattered that initial, simplistic narrative. You have an immigrant, a Muslim man, becoming the hero at an attack on a Jewish festival. This forced everyone, the media, the public, everyone, to confront a much more complex and human reality, one that you just can't capture in a simple headline. So in the direct aftermath of the attack, while the nation was still reeling, the Australian government moved with unprecedented speed to enact these sweeping policy changes. The New South Wales Parliament was recalled before Christmas, which is highly unusual, to pass what the Premier called the toughest gun legislation in the country. The proposals you see here, they represent a massive tightening of what were already some of the strictest gun laws in the world. Right, and this just perfectly illustrates how specific the response was. The proposal to restrict gun ownership to Australian citizens, that directly addresses the status of the older perpetrator, Sajid Akram. He was a permanent resident, not a citizen, but he had legally managed to get 6 firearms. This policy shift isn't just a general tightening of the rules, it's a laser-focused reaction to a key vulnerability this attack exposed. This rapid and incredibly specific legislative response forces us to zoom out and ask that classic investigative question: cui bono? Who benefits from this tragedy, and who benefits from the precise way the government reacted to it?
The intelligence profiles on the attackers present a really stark contrast. The father, Sajid, was what agencies call a clean skin. He had no criminal record, he was a legal gun owner. His son, Naveed, on the other hand, was on the radar. He'd been investigated by Australia's spy agency ASIO for ties to an ISIS cell, but they ultimately decided he wasn't an ongoing threat. A critical assessment that is, you can bet, under a massive microscope right now.
And then there's this weird little thing in the timeline. The attackers returned from a month-long trip to the Philippines just 2 weeks before the massacre. Specifically, they were near Davao in the Mindanao region, which is a known hotbed for jihadist groups. This strongly suggests a period of final preparation or coordination that just completely flew under the radar of intelligence agencies. And this is the pressure cooker the whole event just dropped into. The attack happened while there was all this international pressure on Australia over its diplomatic stance on Palestine. As this chart shows, Australia's position was being compared unfavorably to its partners in the Five Eyes intelligence alliance, the US, UK, Canada, and New Zealand. Some leaders had even publicly claimed that Australia's stance was fueling the anti-Semitic fire. This attack didn't happen in a vacuum. It landed smack dab on a geopolitical fault line. So, the official sequence of events is pretty clear. But when you place that sequence right alongside the media and political response, some serious questions about the speed and coordination of it all start to pop up. The sheer velocity of the official reaction is what raises the most questions for me. Just look at this timeline. We go from the first shots fired on a Sunday evening to a fully formed, sweeping national gun control framework being announced less than 24 hours later. That is an exceptionally rapid turnaround from a complex terror event to a coordinated nationwide legislative response.
And this really brings us to our final thought. The incredible speed of the political reaction. While, maybe it was necessary, it does invite us to critically examine how narratives get shaped in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy. It forces us to ask, what agendas might these rapidly formed narratives serve, and who ultimately benefits from the story that takes hold first?